Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of different Diablo news covering all three of the games, but mostly it's going to be a huge update on Immortal. But first off, this image over here is actually just from a investor PDF. It basically just goes over like the plans for some of the things coming out from Activision and Blizzard. But the most important thing that I'm actually interested in is obviously the Diablo content. So first off, Diablo 2 Resurrected is still on schedule, so it will be coming out on September 23rd. So that's just kind of an update that they haven't pushed it back, because with games these days, everything is usually getting pushed back. But nice to see that they're still on schedule for that. Now, the gameplay that you guys are seeing is Diablo 4 in the background here, which let's talk about this right now. So it's actually the third little bullet point over in the Diablo category. It says Blizzard continues to make strong progress on Diablo 4 and is allocating substantial resources to creating exciting in-game content to drive engagement over multiple years. So I know for some of you guys, you might not think that that is a big deal, but it actually is a pretty big deal. It's saying that they're going to be supporting the game for a longer period of time than maybe some people initially at first thought. Now, they did do a post over on the quarterly update that I did go over in detail, but I'm curious to know, what do you guys think is going to be their way of monetization through the years? Because remember, this is for investors, not just like where Diablo 3, we get new seasons, which is really cool and all, but I would like to see a bigger amount of content. That can be through expansions, it can be through micro DLC, as in like something that you might purchase, like for example, cosmetic. They were showing off a lot of the different cosmetics that they actually had options for in the game. Now, some of these just might be options in the game, but we do know that there's confirmation of mounts in Diablo 4, so this could be another area where they can monetize the game. But I'm curious to know what you guys think that are more, core Diablo fans. Do you guys think that this is what they plan to do, or do you guys think they're going to be planning on releasing seasons with maybe new classes? Because as far as I'm aware of, they are only going to have so many classes at the start, and we may have to purchase these as maybe DLC like we had with the Necromancer DLC in Diablo 3. So that could be a source of different revenue. And also, I'm not sure if they're going to require us to buy expansion packs or what their business model is. But at the end of the day, them announcing that they're going to have things for investors, saying that it's going to be supported for years to come, that's great news for a Diablo content creator. So I'm still excited at the end of the day about that. But I'm curious to know how you guys feel about, what they plan to do for the monetization systems, whatever it may actually be. Now, moving on to Diablo Immortal news. This was actually posted recently, so it's a big update for Diablo Immortal. So, first off, in terms of the difference with what's new with Diablo Immortal, they're actually going to be pushing back the game to the first half of 2022. So, that's going to be a disappointment for some people, but for me, I'm just excited that we're getting some new content. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and roll some Diablo Immortal footage that I have. So, what it comes down to is they are pushing back the game, and then on top of that, they're going to be adjusting a bunch of different things in the game, and they're also making some changes to the Hello Query to make it more engaging, which is almost kind of like the Kanai's Cube, and I'll go kind of into that in a moment over here. But they also mentioned that people didn't really feel like they were rewarded for doing higher challenge rifts. For me, I mean, the challenge rifts were relatively quick anyways, and you would attain some things for completing them, but for a lot of people, they didn't feel like that they were super rewarding, because you would unlock the reward for like whatever tier, and then you wouldn't get other rewards for doing the same tier. You'd have to keep on going higher and higher, which is, I guess, part of it. You did get rewards, and I did get some rewards for being like so high in one category. So like the highest wizard or the highest of whatever class would get like a bonus reward. So I thought that was kind of cool. And on top of that, people like to be on the leaderboard, but that would be interesting to see, like, how they decide to buff the system for that. If you guys do want to learn more about Diablo Immortal's like different systems, I've got tons of videos as they did have access to the game in their earlier stages. But on top of that, there are these raids that you can do. They're called like the Hello Query. If you're able to do it with 8 players, it's going to be super, super easy. I feel like the difficulty will probably have to be adjusted for this, but there are these different systems where you can get like huge power. And when you would do some of these Hello Queries, these are kind of like what you would get. If you guys want to know more about it, again, I'm going to have a bunch of videos pinned for this one. But it goes over, like, it shows you the huge amount of offensive and defensive rating, which is kind of like your main stat in the game. It's basically like DPS and survivability, or if you kind of want to consider it toughness in Diablo 3. In a sense, it's kind of like that. But basically, if you would do these, you would get a huge amount of power, and they were good. I thought the system was kind of cool. And there was some other ones that you can acquire that would like make it so you do more damage when you would attack from behind. Like there's a little bit of room for what I would consider like theory crafting in it. So I like that system at the end of the day. Now, another really nice thing that they will be bringing to the game is some differences with balance with the PvP. If you guys didn't see the PvP, there were some YouTubers that did upload it. The PvP, it felt like a lot of times people were just getting absolutely obliterated. Like you get one-shot, heck, I got one-shotted sometimes, and then Barb would come in and then it'd be like, you can't even damage me for a while, and it was a very short cooldown. So in terms of the PvP for Immortal, them changing this, I think is overall going to be great. Specifically, the time to kill, they actually did mention that in the article. So the time to kill, I think, was way too fast. If any of you guys even played Diablo 2 PvP, there were people that were able to basically tank through like Absorb, but most players would die very, very fast. So it was just more so who would land the hit, because sometimes for some classes it's very difficult to actually land your hit. But then if you were playing like a trap assassin, you could set up traps. By the time they walk out, they're already dead. So balance is an issue. Heck, the Crusader actually could set up traps in Diablo Immortal, which was interesting. It was with like a unique like legendary, so that was very interesting. But nonetheless, as long as they balance it and make it a good time, because what happened with Immortals PvP, like it was a very set amount of time that you'd be able to participate in. Like it was on very specific time frames of the day. A lot of times what would happen is like people would queue in once and then that was it. A lot of people would just leave PvP because they got smashed super, super hard, and I totally get that. So that's a nice change, and I hope that PvP can be a really good way for a lot of people to spend their time in Immortal. Now, they're also adding controller support for the game. This is something that's really awesome. Now, I used to use third-party programs to access this, playing keyboard and mouse, and as well as with controller. With hybrid on touchscreen for some of the skills, because it was just difficult to use some of these third-party programs. Awesome that they're actually adding controller support to the game, as a lot of people didn't really like touchscreens, myself included. I'm not a fan of touchscreens, so this is going to be a really nice change for people that are interested in playing, like even just using some other application to emulate. Play with controller is awesome, and it's nice to see that it's going to be integrated into the game. Now, the next thing that I'm really hoping for is just a PC port of this game, so I can just play natively with a keyboard and mouse at a much higher frame rate. You know how like a lot of other mobile games, they have a PC version? I would love for Diablo Immortal to have a PC version as well. But the next thing I want to talk about is an interesting thing that they mentioned on character progression. I'm really curious to know your guys' thoughts on this, but they're implementing a system that will enable players with higher Paragon levels or players taking on higher difficulties to receive more powerful items. This is a great change because even though like you'd max out on level, like it didn't really feel like you were getting more power other than like you just progress by collecting these little orbs and you turn them in. It felt like you would get more powerful as you progress in the game, but then at some point it felt like you almost hit a wall and you would very, very rarely get an upgrade. But that's just how some action RPGs are. Once you get like some of like the best gear, it's harder to kind of get better gear than that, as the roles in Diablo Immortal in terms of like the suffixes and like the affixes weren't huge in the varying degrees of a more complex action RPG. It looks like in this game you're basically looking for like damage or defense in one sort of category, where they all kind of merge into one, versus like I want to get some unique item that specifically works with this type of like scaling in attribute, if that makes any sense. But this is something that I want to talk about. So what they're also doing with this is they're introducing a bonus XP gain for players who play less often. Secondly, we're replacing the weekly XP cap with a global cap that increases over time. This allows players more flexibility with their playtime while also allowing latecomers to a server a viable path to catch up. They also actually limited your XP. They actually had a cap. And so what people would do basically to get around this, because you would stop getting certain things as you would progress, and each character that you created in Immortal would have their own like battle pass, which was kind of cool because then you'd basically get more rewards. And so what a lot of people were doing was multiple characters. That was your incentivization to make multiple characters, which in one sense is good because, you know, I like to try multiple classes, but the way that it works in Immortal is that you didn't get your Paragon points immediately. You would basically have to get your character to max level, then you would have access to it. So it wasn't a super breeze to go through the campaign. Like, it's easily several hours of experience going from like level 1, like a character that you like newly created from the account that has already progressed into several Paragons. Like in Diablo 3, if you have a Paragon that, you know, several hundred or thousand and you make a new character, you can breeze through the game relatively quick. But in Immortal, it's a very long grind to get another character up. So it'd be really cool to see if they implement that somehow, where like if you create a second character or third character to incentivize this, giving you some type of bonus would be quite great. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for the Diablo news as far as the video goes. But like I said, I'm curious to know how you guys feel about that system, because it feels a little bit awkward for those players that will grind and put a lot of time into the game, that you're going to be on this like capped and you're just not going to be able to progress as fast as someone that maybe plays a little bit less, but they are going to be able to like go faster. So there's a balance between like supporting the characters that are going to grind your game for a huge amount of time, because that incentivizes, you know, the player number count to be higher. Therefore, you know, it just makes the game look better and there's more, you know, players in the game, because when you put someone, you know, up against a wall where they feel like that they're not progressing, they're just not going to be playing your game. So maybe a different form of progression towards, you know, earning something to maybe get cosmetics or something. So it still incentivizes those players that will be willing to grind to still get something at the end of the day. But anyways, that's my feedback and my thoughts. You guys can let me know yours down below in the comment section below. But thanks for tuning in, guys. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you want to be up to date with more Diablo stuff in the future, as we should be getting another form of the Diablo 2 Resurrected beta or alpha, whatever the next progression is right now. I think it's probably beta or like pretty much close to release variant of the game, and I'll be covering that as well when that does come out. If you guys want to see more gameplay of Diablo 2 Resurrected, we did get access to a earlier copy of it, so I'll pin that also down below, as well as a lot of stuff with Immortal, because this is what the main video was about. But I'm really excited to see that Diablo 4 will be getting support for years to come. But again, I'm curious to see what they do with the monetization. But take care, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video, and I'm out. Peace.